Hey y'all, it's your girl Sia, and I'm back with another video. Y'all, I wanted to do this video earlier, but I had homework to do and I needed to make sure I got it done before I went to bed. And obviously now I can kind of be lazy, but I wanted to just do a live. Again, I'm striving to rebuild my channel. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm doing lives, even if it's absolutely nothing. I want to do a live as many times as I can. But I did want to talk to you guys about this movie because I am subscribed to a YouTube channel. I think it's two of them, which is KJ's What Happened and The Scariest Movie Ever, right? And they're both owned by KJ Osborne. I think that's his last name. I could be wrong, but he's recently, well, over the last year, has had to move over to Rumble because of the type of content that he likes to share, right? And I've been following this guy for years, quite a few years. And he introduced me to the new movie, which was the trailer, because he was doing like a little brief like review of it. And then obviously I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, I gotta see this, right? The movie stars Julia Roberts. I don't know the men in that movie by their names, but I know that they're big actors as well. The husband and then the black man, and then you had the young girl, right? The obviously the little girl, the daughter and the son, but then you had the black daughter, right? Um, and it was very interesting. Let me just say this again, very layered. I really don't like these utopian movies, like how they do the endings, because it always feels like there should always be like a part two, and there's never a part two. So it kind of just leaves you, it's like a cliffhanger if they just seem to do second movies to these kinds of movies where you're just kind of like, okay, like that's it, you know? So I would really love to see a movie go more into like the, I guess, where it takes your imagination, because as you can imagine, it's like the end of the world, the apocalypse kind of deal, but it never really gets to the root of the problem. Like you hear speculation anytime, any movie that you guys seen, like what was it? I think it was like Bird Box. There was another one. What is that one that they came out? I can't remember, but there's so many movies that they've come out with where it's just like you don't really like that too much. Does that make sense? I feel like this one was a little bit more relatable just because it was speaking on, this movie spoke on things that a Tesla vehicle, or friends, right? Those types of deals. Like, I feel like it's just more relatable, but I still feel like you get that kind of cliffhanger, just kind of like, okay, well, what actually happened though? Like, how did this happen? Like, it's always left to your imagination, and that's the part that kills me, because I'm like, a movie can, it can kind of feed the imagination, if that makes sense. So why not go off into the freaking story of it all? I don't know. um but it was a good movie, okay, like, meaning that it kept me interested. So for me, a good movie is something that does not bore me, right? I may not like the ending, but overall, the movie kept my interest. I will say that it's very action packed in a way. It's just the action looks different. Um, Very bizarre, right? The biggest thing, I think the biggest scene for me in that movie that really drove me just really kind of messed with my mind is the Tesla vehicles. And that's only because I see Tesla cars every day. I don't like Tesla cars, and that's only because I just don't like them. I don't like Tesla drivers, not them personally, but their cars. And I'm not a fan of Tesla, right? I get the idea, right? I think the idea of it is cool, but I do have to consider like the movie I just saw, right? The scenes I just seen. And I'm not for that shit, right? If you guys have seen the movie, you guys would know. Like, I don't mean to spoil the movie for those of you guys who have not already seen it. But there's a scene with these Tesla vehicles and they're self-driving and it's kind of creepy, okay? Believe it or not. And made me really want to question whether or not, like I said, I understand in 2030, especially if you live in like these democratic cities like Colorado, they're expecting you to not have a gas vehicle by 2030, and or they will be illegal by 2030, right? Or whatever they keep saying. So in my head, I'm like, oh hell no. I think I'm gonna keep my gas guzzler, right? And I don't know where I'm gonna get some gas. Maybe I'm gonna have to start stocking up or something. I don't know. But I feel like if it gets to that point, that's where we at 2024. That's 6 more years if I'm here still. Or I move to a state that has similar rules, right? But that's 6 years that I have to pay off my car and store it somewhere. Like, I would not, like, I feel like just after seeing that movie and really seeing it, not just hearing it and thinking, I feel as though if I have to own an electric car, I would still own a gas guzzler. I may not drive the gas guzzler, but if there ever came a chance where um that stuff, like my Tesla just decided it was gonna go drive to a certain spot and crash, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to choose the gas, right? So I really am starting to realize you probably should have more than one vehicle, right? Especially if the apocalypse doesn't happen by 2030, you're gonna need something. Um, the Julia Roberts, I think they intentionally, I got to go back and do some research on the movie, but I'm going to be honest. Julia Roberts is one of my most favorite actors, and I'm going to be real. I hated her character the damn near the entire movie, okay? And what this woman reminded me of, and she played it to a fucking T, bro, which tells me that folks know when they're like her or not. Like, they have to. And so what they would consider her, like in the movie, she kept saying, well, I don't like people. I don't like people. But there are people like her that I've dealt with before. And I just can't stand people like her in the movie. Okay. And it was very interesting because you saw the whole race relations nonsense, right? And they didn't touch on it too heavy, but they did touch on it. And you're dealing with, a family who decides like they want to travel, they want to take a break because she doesn't like people or whatever. She wants to take a break and she wants to do a getaway. And then she realizes the home that she does the getaway in is owned by a black family. And in her mind, she can't wrap her mind around the fact that these people are black and they own the house. And they were very polite, right? Like, very polite, right? But her character irked my freaking nerves. Let me tell you, Julia Roberts, I don't give a damn. At the end, she was like all super nice, but to me, it was like her whole character was shitty from the moment she got to this place. Like it was just weird. Especially when the black people got involved. When she realized, oh, these people are richer than me, right? you know, And that was telling to me because, again, I don't believe that these movies touch on things just to be touching on them. I do think that these movies are layered for reasons, and they touch on a lot of different things for a lot of different reasons. Um, at first, I will say this: the whole boat pulling up on the beach and the planes just crashing out of the sky for no reason. That stuff is not realistic for me. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It was very hard to relate to those scenes because I've never physically seen that shit, right? So it almost, that's where the imagination starts to kind of come in a little bit, because you're like, could that really happen like that? Could it really happen like that? Like, I don't really know, but it was a very cool scene seeing that big ass boat on the beach. Like, that was a cool scene. Um Seeing the people turn on one another, right? And the idea that, I've been stockpiling for many years or whatever, and I knew this was going to come, and the idea of a civil war, I just feel like we can kind of feel that. We have been feeling it. In my opinion, it's going to happen. And they're trying different ways to get us to respond in that manner, which is very interesting. Because you're fighting so many different, like, people don't realize there's so many things happening all at one time. It's like everything everywhere all at once, like, real talk, that if you get caught up in the nonsense, you could easily be bamboozled because you're allowing your emotions to slip, right? So the thing is, with everything we see happening in this world right now, right? Today, like in real life, the goal is, again, when God, like, I really believe that to be in the world but not of the world is like the realest depiction of where we're at right now, right? Because you have to observe what's going on. So you're aware of what's going on, but you have to be able to observe in a manner that does not allow you to act irrationally, right? And there's so many things happening right now that is easy for folks to get caught up in their emotions and the irrationalism of it all, right? And so, what happens when you've got people that are only thinking from an emotional standpoint and not a logical one or an intelligent one, right? And not saying that emotions are not intelligence; they're just a different level of intelligence. It's different. Um, when you have people who are operating from a low vibrational standpoint, and they do not have the communication skills to properly communicate and express themselves, they resort to tactics, that are rooted in fear, right? And all these different emotions that are not positive and do not help to push society forward. So the Civil War thing, it's almost like I said, we've been teeter-tottering on that, right? You got it's almost like they just haven't pushed the right button yet. They're pushing all the buttons, but they missed one, right? And so I feel like that's where society is at, especially in America right now. Things are so, like, on the tip of the surface, like it can happen at any time, right? And I'm surprised, with my lack of humanity and faith, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, right? But like I said, I do believe that we have a core group of people, which is very important, that understand this. And so they do not move in an emotional manner that would cause an all outright civil war. But if they keep pushing the freaking buttons, which they're going to keep doing, right? Who knows, right? Who knows? So I found that to be interesting, right? And I love how they talk about, he goes into this story and he told this story about how this guy he knew who made so much money and he was so powerful, like, was telling him that he needs to join them and, get to a safe place and all this jazz. And then one day he kind of just told him, well, you're SOL, like, you're kind of out of luck, kind of deal. So that was pretty cool. Cool little story. It would have been nicer, like I said, to see them go into that aspect a little bit more when he starts talking about the secret societies and all that. It would have been nice to get into that, like, to see more of a storyline on that. But again, the movie was 2 hours long, so it's like, how long do you really expect that kind of movie to be? I just feel like some of these movies, they're so focused on showing you what could happen that they miss the storyline. So there's a storyline up until a point, and then you're like, okay, well, y'all gonna get some bad guys, or what are you guys doing? You know, um, the little girl was getting on my goddamn nerves. Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. Okay, I don't care how young she was supposed to be. The character itself was getting on my nerves. However, I believe she was probably I don't want to say smartest of the group, right? But when it comes to everybody else then got in some sort of havoc. They running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And the little girl ends up in a bunker watching Friends, like, and chilling. That's all she wanted to do the whole movie, right? And so I don't understand that part. I may have to go back and rewatch to figure out why they kept referring to Friends. Like, Friends is a great show, but what was the reason that the little girl was so stuck on Friends, right? And then, you know what was creepy too? Them deer. Dog, I was like, man, I didn't know if deer. I was sitting there, I remember watching it, and I'm like, okay, do deer like attack? And I'm thinking, well, no, Bambi don't attack, right? I didn't know. It was so many of them things. It would have creeped me out too. I would have been super, super creeped out, right? Again, they don't give you enough detail, right? They leave it to your imagination. It was a wonderful, wonderful show, or movie. If you are curious as to what would happen if we were ever in an apocalypse or if we were ever at war, whatever, I think that movie is a good reference, right? To just things that kind of make you go, right? And that Tesla scene, let me tell you, that I don't know, it's gonna be a little bit before I'm able mentally to get behind a Tesla, because that shit was, I don't know, it messed with my mind a little bit. And it helped me to see things from a different point of view than I would now, right? Because initially I was like, well, why not? I want an Audi e-tron that's electric. Why not? Like, if that's where we're going, okay. Now I need to make money so that I can afford that price of a car, because that shit's hella expensive, okay? But then when I'm really thinking about it, I'm like, nah, you might want to hold on to your car. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but the way I'm looking at it right now is there's probably no reason for me. And I don't know if it matters because she's still computer operated, right? I don't know how it works with the computers, but I would assume that any vehicle that runs on gas, and preferably I would assume it would be a car that doesn't have a chip in it, right? So if you don't have a computer and you've got this old vehicle, that might be the better option than any just random car with a computer chip in it, right? um but you might want to have both. It just makes you look at things a little differently. Great actors, like I said, Julia Roberts, as much as I did not like her character, she played her character to a T. Okay, that was expected. It was just, come on, girl, I know you're better than this shit. And her character was probably the toughest to watch. Um, the little boy, oh my God, I don't even want to say he's little because he's like some teenager. First of all, he's a fucking creep. The little kid is a damn creep, okay? So if all his teeth fell out, well deserved. Okay? I mean, that's shitty, right? Nobody wants to wake up and then all of a sudden your teeth are just randomly falling out. And as a parent, that really would have freaked me out because he's not at an age where his teeth should be falling out, right? So that scene was kind of creepy. It was horrendous to watch, but I feel like again they made this 2-hour fucking movie and didn't really get in. It's almost like these movies remind me of the video game movies where it's like there's no real plot. It's just a bunch of killing. Just like this is a lot of random shit that's just happening. Folks, I mean, it'll keep your attention because you're like, whoa, like, could this really happen? But when you really look at it, I mean, there's a storyline, but the storyline is weaker than the actual events that happened in the movie. It's like, I don't know how to explain. Like they keep your attention with the things that happen because they know movies like this, people love to see it because they're like, whoa, could this really happen? But there's never like a real, like, detailed storyline. And I mean, the storyline was there, but I mean, I just feel like there were certain parts of the movie that they could have really delved into that really could have fed the imagination as it relates to conspiracies and conspiracy theorists, right? I just feel like they could have, like, they gave you something, they did better than some of these, but they could have dug a little deeper, right? They could have went a little further, right? For 2 hours of a goddamn movie. I'm just saying. So it's I give it about a 7 or 8. And that's only because of the events in the movie that will keep your attention, just because, like I said, you can relate. However, the storyline itself, in my opinion, I don't know if this is like a theme that they do. I mean, it seems like it. All the movies like this are very similar. But I do feel like I want to see a movie where the storyline, when it's surrounding secret societies and conspiracies, I just want to see it more detailed, more thought out. Not just here's the end of the world and this is what's about to happen, but hey, here's the end of the world. Here are the bad guys. Here's what happened. Here's what we got to do to save ourselves. Like, I want to see it from beginning to end. And I don't think anybody has the middle or the end part yet. Like, I've yet to see it in a show, for real, for real. So that's where I'm at with it, y'all. Great show. Like I said, it feeds on your imagination when it comes down to conspiracies and what could happen, and more recent events, which was really, really cool to see. Um, but again, I mean, the storyline could have been better. So that's my take on it, y'all. If you guys have seen it, let me know what you think down of in the comments below of the movie. But I did want to touch on it just because it was on my heart. I watched it at like 4 a.m. this morning, y'all. I was up. I was ready. I was like, oh, this movie's out, bet I'm watching it. And I was up, okay, watching it. So I liked the movie. It was a great watch in terms of keeping my interest, but I would love to see these types of movies, like I said, be a little bit more thoughtful when it comes to the storyline, and really play on the watcher's emotions, because a lot of the people who like stuff like this, they are conspiracy theorists to some degree. So it would be nice to see the people play on that, like, play on it, take my imagination, let's go see what these secret societies, like, play off of it and feed the imagination a little further. So that's all I gotta say, y'all. With that being said, have a good night. I'm out. Peace.